TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zyman, your State Farm insurance agent. Scott can help you save money bundling your home and auto insurance. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zyman and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. For delivery or pickup, call 815-758-8116 or go to pizzavilla.com. My Insurance Guys in Sycamore, family-owned, local, reliable. My Insurance Guys cover Medicare to auto and everything in between. Call us in Sycamore at 815-899-0950. My Insurance Guy, business, auto, home, life, and health at myinsuranceguy.com. And Eldercare Services of DeKalb County, safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay at home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org. Welcome into TD Ryan Unleashed, podcast number 26. Honored and privileged to have with us Judge John Countryman joining us here this morning. Judge, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Thank you for making time for us again. As I look back at your body of work, admitted to the Illinois Bar in 1970, public defender for the DeKalb County's office, an adjunct professor at Northern Illinois University, president of the Kishwaukee YMCA Board of Directors, president of Kishwaukee Sunrise Rotary Club, chairman of the International Council on Government Ethics, Laws, and president of the DeKalb County Bar Association. So when I read your body of work, Judge, I'm getting justice, education, and helping children. Is that a safe way to describe your career?
Well, I hope so, but I also served as chairman of the Illinois State Board of Elections from 1978 to 1983, and then I went in the House of Representatives, and I was there from 1984 to 1990, and then went on the bench in 1990.
Yeah, I want to ask you about your time in Congress as well, but first of all, let's talk about when my sister, I have 4 brothers and an older sister, and she used to have to mediate all the differences that we had. What were you like as a kid? Did you have siblings, and were you always the judge, always kind of being Solomon-like in deciding who gets enough candy or who gets enough ice cream?
No, I have one older sister, and no, I wasn't.
You weren't the mediator then?
Didn't mediate, you just fought to the end.
But what kind of kid would you describe yourself? Were you a book rat or a jock, or what were you?
Well, I was really a jock, but I was into business. I delivered papers in the south side of DeKalb. I drove out there the other day to look at how that was and remembered how cold it was in the middle of the winter. And then when they opened the A&P store, which is now Ferranda's, I went to work there at age 16 and worked there all through high school and all through attending Northern Illinois University. So
is that right?
6 years. Slugging produce and stocking shelves and checking out people and all that stuff. Some people still see me and remember that.
So DeKalb, born and raised. Did you move away at any point? You went to school at Northern. I think you went to school, you went away at one point. Didn't you do school?
Well, I went to...
Kent State. You went to Kent College, right?
Chicago Kent College of Law, which is now part of Illinois Institute of Technology.
Okay. Well, tell us about now, your happy childhood, and who was your greatest influence? Did you have somebody who...
My father was
your father,
the state's attorney of DeKalb County.
Okay.
Yeah, and, I was in the courthouse. I tell people in the courthouse that old elevator, when you walk in and go across it, I'd go back, my father would go back to work at night and take me along and say, it'd be half an hour. They'd just put in the elevator and I'd do nothing but ride it up to the 3rd floor. Now I get on it and it just shakes.
I'm thinking of the movie To Kill a Mockingbird, too, with the young son watching his dad, the lawyer. You must have that kind of admiration for your father.
I did, yes. And I think that's probably why I went into law. My father passed away before I was out of high school, but it was a motivation for me to go into law.
Now, your mom was there to see you graduate?
Oh, yeah. My mom was there to see me graduate.
Boy, I bet that was a moment. I can imagine. Yeah. So let's talk about, you mentioned your time. John Countryman was sworn in as March 27th as a new state representative from the 76th district. Countryman was chosen the District Republican Party to fill the seat of Joseph Ebersine, if I'm saying that right? Ebersine. So tell us about that. What was that like when they asked you to do that, Judge?
Well, I was a candidate.
Oh, you were? Okay.
I'd already filed as a candidate. I had to leave the State Board of Elections because you can't be a candidate. And I'd filed, but Joe Eberson's had some health problems and some other problems, and he resigned. That created a vacancy. So then they appointed me in March of 1984. I was then elected in November of 1984 and 2 times after that. But it was very impressive because that time, and I didn't realize it when he went to Springfield, they swore you in, and Judge Justice Benjamin Miller was on the appellate court at the time, came over and swore me in. He was a friend of mine, and swore me in on the House floor. And then I got to speak. When I went in the other 3 times to be sworn in, I was sworn in with the other 117 other members, and my family came down, but my family wasn't there the first time when I got to speak.
Oh, really? Oh. So tell us about it. You had a campaign to run then. In '84, you ran, right? What was that like now?
It was tough.
Was it?
It was tough. Jordan Gallagher ran against me in 1984, and he'd been the state's attorney, and frankly was a friend. But we had a campaign that year, and it was tough. I represented all of DeKalb County, which was nice, and northern part of LaSalle and part of Kendall County.
Did you pull out all the stops? I mean, how would you compare it to the way people campaign now with all the negativity?
We didn't have any negativity.
Okay.
My wife had dated Jordan Gallagher before he dated me. He ended up marrying me, so I told him I won.
You win that case, that's for sure.
But no, we committed to not negativity. Now, I won't say that there wasn't some negativity towards me coming from the other side, but it wasn't coming from Jordan Gallagher. It was coming from Springfield.
Okay, that's good that you can separate that too. And Governor Big Jim Thompson was governor then. I think one of our best governors. What was it like working under Jim Thompson?
I enjoyed Jim Thompson. He appointed me to the State Board of Elections, chairman of the State Board of Elections in 1978. And we immediately went into a big hearing about 2 weeks after we got sworn in. And it was all over a petition that he had filed. But I had many occasions to be with him, see him. He always came to the Sandwich Fair, and I would meet him down there. And he had family in DeKalb County. But I think he did a great job. And at the end of the time, both of us were leaving in 1990. I went into his office in the Capitol building, and I was seeking what was an addition to the science building at Northern Illinois University that had been really put by the side, even though it was on the top of the Capital Development Board's budget. And I said, I got to get this through. And he said, you got to carry the water, John. And but then we talked about our careers of where we were at that point. And he said, you know, the best part of my 14 years as governor is that no one was indicted or when anybody had to resign.
Right, there you go. And in Illinois, that's quite a statement to be able to make. And what about the partisan politics? Was it bad then, Judge, with the, not getting along with each other?
Well, I mean, we had our philosophical differences. And
sure.
Speaker Madigan was there, and the recent updates on him. But he was in control of the House when I was there. But between the individuals, I'd say no. I'd tell everybody I would drive down the old 51 because the new 39 wasn't in existence then. And Dick Mulcahy was a Democrat from Durand. He'd pull up behind me in his big Buick, honk the horn, wave his hand. That meant we were stopping at the Dairy Queen in El Paso and have coffee together.
No cell phones then, right?
No cell phones. They had to honk the horn, and I knew what he meant. And we seemed to get along personally, and we would say, that we would argue all day, and then we'd go out and have a little libation after work.
What do you think was the greatest accomplishment when you were in office, or helped to accomplish that?
When I was in the House?
Did you propose some legislation then?
I did all the election law.
Oh, it's all the election stuff. Okay.
Yeah, and we moved a lot of things into audits. And if you remember, we had those precinct ballot counters with the punch cards, and we really shaped some laws with the help of the legislative staff. We improved that process greatly during that time. I secured an engineering building at Northern Illinois University as well as that science building I just mentioned. We did a lot of things for the university. I used to have the little Husky thing on the front of my desk because I was the guy from Northern.
Yeah, and you got a lot of stuff done, and the Northern appreciates that. So, I'm a bit of a presidential historian, and I'm thinking about President William Howard Taft, who was the only president that went from being a president to the Supreme Court justice. And why didn't you stick with being a congressman? Why didn't you stay in politics? I'm sure that's a long answer, but give me the short version.
Senator John Grappert was my roommate when I was in Springfield, and he always told me going to the judiciary was a dead end. He'd been the congressman. We passed away. Denny Hastert ran and won that seat. And my wife and I spent a long time talking about whether I run for Congress when that came up, and decided that it wouldn't be fair to my children.
It's really a different lifestyle, isn't it? I mean,
And even being in the General Assembly today, or when I was there, it's a tough job. You're away from home a lot. If you have children, you're away from the children. I mean, and you're down there every week. And my great-grandfather, James Alonzo Countryman, served in the Illinois House of Representatives from 1899 to 1903. And I've always been curious as to how he got down there in those days, because you didn't have cars and how they did it. But I concluded that they went down and they stayed in Springfield until they got the job done. My wife always said to me, "Why don't you just do it like your great-grandfather?"
I love it. That's great. Now, nature versus nurture, that was always my favorite question on the radio. Obviously, you said your grandfather and then your father, state's attorney. Do you think you would have gone this route if they hadn't been doing what they do?
There was a lot of incentive. There were things to encourage me to run for state's attorney, and I don't know, it just never happened. I didn't follow my father's footsteps from there, but my father always wanted to be a judge, and I think that was something that made me want to run. Also was the fact that I was burning the bridges at both ends when I had a small law practice and still being in the legislature with both with part-time jobs and a family, and all of that. And when it came a good opportunity to run for the bench and go to the DeKalb County Courthouse, I took it.
Oh, very good. We're talking to Judge John Countryman about the various issues and various things that he's gone through in his lifetime. Now, I, for one, and I know many Americans are concerned about the election process. It's a scary thing when you start challenging that and saying this is invalid and unvalid. And I'm going to go all the way back to 1987, but this is right when you first started as an election judge. And it was a contest, a state representative election decided by only 4 votes, being reviewed by the House Committee on Elections, which includes newly appointed member John Countryman from DeKalb. There seems to be a problem with the conduct of the election, State Representative Countryman said, talking about Jerry Weller winning by 4 votes. Now, Christensen asked for a partial recount. I wonder if you'd explain that, Judge, and limited amount of time we have, but a partial recount as opposed to a full recount, and how you told me off the air how you have to get that, how you were able to do that.
What I told you off the air, but it doesn't apply to when you have an election in the General Assembly. In the General Assembly, they are the judges of their own election.
Okay.
And that wasn't really a partial. It was a full. I was the chairman of the committee for the Republicans that did that. And I remember going into Kankakee County and finding the old ballot machines that they used in Chicago. We had paper ballots in some spots. We had all kinds of electrical equipment with the punch cards all over the state.
Wow.
And then we had a big debate on the House floor, and I swore to this day that Jerry Weller won, but they reversed it, put Christensen in.
They did? Okay.
About 2 days before that General Assembly adjourned for good, and it really was not a good day. And they marched Jerry Weller off the House floor, it was
Is that right?
It was really quite a moment.
There's 2 great quotes from you where you say, according to the state constitution, election disputes are decided in the chamber in which the cases occur. And then you say, any review or recount of the 85th district race must be fair and represent the people's wishes. So that's what you're all about, right, Judge?
It's what I've done. I've recounted a number of elections as a private lawyer, even since I retired from the bench.
Now, there's another case, and again, I don't mean to go back so far in time. This is 1993. A petition to vote the 6th ward aldermanic election was denied Thursday by DeKalb County Judge Kevin K.O. Johnson, the candidate for the 6th Ward Alderman in April 20th election, petitioned to have the contest declared void because some voters in the 6th Ward did not realize they were eligible to vote in the ward. Strauss won 69 to Johnson's 58. John Countryman, the DeKalb County Circuit Judge, said after hearing evidence and argument from the petitioner and respondent, the court finds the petitioner lack of standing. So that means that he doesn't get the recount, right?
He didn't get the recount. He didn't have what we call in the law standing, that is the ability to come in. He had to be a voter who was disenfranchised in some way. And He wasn't a voter, he was the candidate.
Now, I've heard that term my whole life, disenfranchised. What does that mean exactly, Judge, when you say that?
That means he was denied.
Just not represented?
Some voter went in and was denied the right to vote that should have had the right to vote. We have a process for that now, so that you can vote the ballot and it's put in a separate envelope. And then that's determined later with the election authority, which generally is the county clerk, with both parties being represented and looking at the records in the clerk's office to see if they were legitimately registered to vote or whatever the reason was.
Okay. Very good. Well, appreciate that. There's another quote from here. He says, furthermore, the court finds that there is insufficient evidence to void the election, enjoin the county clerk from issuing a certificate of election, enjoin in the city of seating Mr. Strauss. What does enjoin mean? What does that mean?
Well, you get an injunction. So enjoin is kind of the verb for injunction.
Injunction,
You go to court
okay.
to get an injunction, and he wanted to stop, as I recall, he wanted to stop the election from being certified. When you have an election and the ballots are counted, then all of that's taken over to the election authority. Illinois has some other election authorities other than the county clerks, but most of them are the 102 county clerks. And each one of those has a process to tabulate. And then they, if it's a statewide election of any nature, then they send their certified tabulations to the State Board of Elections.
Okay. And what about, you mentioned voting machines now. I know there's all kinds of controversy about that. And again, maybe like you were saying with your grandma, maybe go back to old school, but what do you think about voting machines right now in 2025?
I think they're accurate, and we have programs now in place that test the counting machines before they're done. You can have problems, and things need to be done according to standards. That is, the ballots are reading optically, and they're looking down at where you've made the mark.
Right.
But they also are reading the sidebars, telling you what precinct and if it's a primary election, which party you're voting in. And so those sidebars, if they aren't printed with enough ink, it doesn't work.
Is that right?
I had that
Okay.
problem when I was at the State Board of Elections in Rock Island County. They sent it out for bid, and they got some off-hand printer who didn't print enough ink on it. We had to recount it by hand.
And by hand, okay. Because now I know people are talking about artificial intelligence and stuff. Do you feel like artificial intelligence might make elections more accurate rather than rely on the human element?
I just came from my own computer where artificial intelligence took over my document, and I don't know how to get out of it. But so I guess I'm a little leery of that. I think we have to keep it under control, so no other documents or no other thing can enter into the computer and deal with it.
All right, very good. Now, I got to teach you a little bit about this one. This goes back to 2014. The recount got physical, it says here. And you were talking about Aurora Election Commission portion of the recount. And apparently, you were working with a gentleman named Tigler. Tigler was standing just like Sheldon Cooper. Countryman insisted Tigler move and emphasize his point with a hip check. Tigler explained, I know we're in litigation, but you don't need to shove me, and you don't need to yell at me anymore. What was it all about, Judge?
Well, when you're...
Did you hip check him?
No, I wasn't on the bench at that time. Okay?
No,
I was
okay.
practicing law. I was representing a judicial candidate doing what we call a discovery recount. And we had about 6 or 7 stations, and I had a volunteer watching for us, and I was going around the 6 or 7 stations, and this gentleman who was the candidate, which I would never let come to a recount if I represented him, but his lawyer
Let him be there?
put him
Okay.
in there, and he was standing over my volunteer, breathing down her neck.
Intimidation, okay.
And I stood up there and I said, please move. And he says I bumped him.
Well, some of us watch these court programs. There was one the other day where the defendant jumped up over the bench and attacked the judge. But did you ever have any other physicality in your courtroom?
No.
Never came down to that?
No.
Good. That's good to hear.
But we didn't have quite the security we have today, but we had a button under the bench and a metal plate down there.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We had a button, but the problem was we didn't have security. Sheriff Scott and Sheriff Roger
Scott, great man.
And I put the security in, but before that, we had a button and all the deputies were over across the street. And if they pushed the button, by the time they got there, they were out of breath.
Did you ever use the button? Did you ever actually?
I didn't, but when the other ones did, they complained if it wasn't. By the time they got there, things usually calmed down and they would complain.
You mentioned Sheriff Roger Scott. What an incredible gentleman. What was it like working with Roger?
Roger was good a sheriff as you'd ever want in any sense of the word. He had highest standards. We worked with a consultant on putting the security in the courthouse, and it was just a pleasure to work with him.
And he was even more impressive in his personal life, wasn't he? Than he was.
He was.
Just a great guy.
Roger was just a great.
He is much missed. Now let's talk about a little bit. I just want to touch upon this because I didn't realize that my lovely bride Becky pointed out that you at one point represented the Indian tribe, the Chaminade. What was that, Judge? What was that like? And where do you feel like things stand now with the?
Well, after I retired from the bench, one of my contacts in Chicago called me and asked me to join in representing the Indian tribe, and I was reading books at home, and my aunt sent me a bunch of books that she had from when she moved into retirement home, and one of them was...
I'm sorry. What was your initial thought? Did you not want to do it?
I didn't want to do it.
Okay.
But I got this book, The History of DeKalb County, and my father always told me that we didn't treat the Indians well in Illinois. And when I read what happened to Chief Shabana and how he'd been run off of his land, and these people kept calling me, I guess they wanted me to get involved in representing them, but I always say they had a Washington, D.C. law firm, a New York law firm, a Chicago law firm, and me.
Is that right? Wow.
But yeah, and it was very interesting to go off and get involved in an area of law that I'd never gotten involved in before.
Were you able to work with those other agencies? Was there conflict there?
No, I worked with them and I learned a lot. And I went to Kansas and visited their operation in Kansas once, and I went to Washington, D.C. a number of times with them. And, Chief Shabana was really run off of land that was given to him in the 1829 Treaty of Prairie du Chien.
So that's all documented, right, Chief? We have the treaty, right? We have
the treaty, and the treaty is an international document. It's like a treaty with another country.
Okay.
And it can't be revoked unless the United States Senate approves it, and never did.
Okay, so where do we stand now? I know you haven't been up on the case per se, but I know one of the things I was concerned about, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I own a piece of property there in that area, and I want to sell it to my son or want him to take it over the property, the Indian tribe will have the first right at that, right? They'll have the first right at that land?
No, I don't think that's true. Properties have sold down there. They bought some houses down there. They bought some when I represented. I haven't represented them since about 2003.
Okay.
But they bought some houses down there when I represented them. They bought some farmland adjacent to it, all of which it was on the original two sections, which were given to Chief Shabana in that treaty. But the park itself, is my understanding now, and I just know this from what I read in the paper and what I watch in the legislature, has been deeded to them. Mm-hmm. What is the park, which was condemned when I was a young lawyer by the state of Illinois, and it was a man-made park.
And it was condemned?
Well, the land was condemned, and then
they made the park. Okay, I see.
They made the park. They dammed up the river, or the creek. It was a creek that made that whole lake. Okay. Lake at Shabana Lake.
Now, one of the comments, this is back from 2014, and this, I'm sure you must have gotten a lot of this, said the state's attorney and judge, we'll get to that, then returned the paper by taking lobbying cash to help an Indian tribe turn part of beautiful Shabana Forest Preserve into an Indian casino. That's all you need to know about that public servant. So, did you get a lot of backlash like that? A lot of people say, yeah, you're trying to just help the Indians build a casino out there?
Well, at the time, I think they were talking about a casino. I don't think they are.
No, they've taken that off the board.
Yeah, but I think gambling is expanded. I've never been a big proponent of gambling. I still am not. But that was their intention. But I think the reason that they wanted me was they needed a connection to the governor of the state.
Did you get any backlash? Did you get any?
Yeah, there were people down there that were not happy with me.
Okay, just leave it at that. All right, very good. Now, Judge, I recently interviewed Veronica Garcia Martinez. She's running for the 70th Congress seat against Jeff Keichert, and she's a bilingual teacher in Cortland. And I, of course, asked her the question, now, why can't we just teach the kids? I was telling her about my grandkids out in Washington. They go to a German school. It's all German. They got immersed in German. That's all they speak there. But why can't the Hispanic kids just learn in English? And she explained to me that over 60% of people in the world speak at least more than one language, which I failed Spanish in high school. But in 2000, you have a Spanish interpreter judicious awful step. You describe what the duties of a Spanish interpreter. Was that a problem do you recall this? And did you remember, was ever a problem with interpreters in the courtroom?
Well, when I went on the bench, we didn't have interpreters, and
oh gosh,
Ray, Softwater City Ray, what's his last name?
A lot of people hearing this will know exactly who you mean. Softwater City Ray.
Well, he was from Cuba, and I would tell the clerk, go call Ray and have him come over.
Is that right?
He'd come over and interpret, and then he'd say, Ray, the county will pay you $35 for your work today. And he'd say, Judge, it's so great to be an American citizen, live in this country with all the opportunities. I don't want any money.
Oh my,
and
really?
He'd go back to selling soft water, rock salt, all the things that he did.
Wow.
Just a great guy. But as life went on, we got more and more Spanish people, and I had the job of finding interpreters. That wasn't an easy job.
I bet not.
And
so this was the criteria then you laid, because we have a document where it's all pretty much laid out.
Yeah,
right?
but I found a lady, and she had a child or two, I can't remember how many, but she needed to be home by 3:00 in the afternoon. And I said, well, most of our stuff is in the morning, and if we needed something in the afternoon, we would schedule it ahead of time, and she would stay. So we hired her from about 8:30 in the morning till I think about 2 in the afternoon, and she did a great job, and she could go everywhere. She could be in the courtrooms. We'd have to request her physical presence, and then she'd go over with the public defender to the jail if they were incarcerated.
Is that right? Wow.
She did a great job. Very nice lady, and she's since moved on.
What a great story about him coming over and volunteering.
Well, I had a hard time with the county administrator putting somebody on the payroll.
Well, yeah.
That wasn't full-time. Okay? That was another battle. I won that one.
Now, education, obviously a big value of yours, and you taught over at the NIU. What law? Tell us about that.
I taught trial law for a semester over at NIU. As a lawyer, I tried a lot of cases. Well, I was initially appointed the public defender over my objection by Judge Carl Swanson.
Okay.
About 3 months out of law school, and I learned how to try cases. They don't teach you that in law school. You learn it on your feet in the courtroom.
What about when people say, how can you defend a person like that? I know when people have worked for the public defender's office, you have these not the best people coming through, but your job is to defend them, right? And did you have trouble with that in terms of?
You have to change your philosophy in life and deal with them, and they aren't always pleasant to deal with, and many times they tell you they wanted a real lawyer.
Is that right?
And I'd say, fine, go hire them.
But bottom line, as America, and everybody gets the representation, whether
it was John Castle, who I was working for at the time, told me it was great training for me. And he was right, but there were days it was tough. I tried a lot of jury cases. I learned how to do it. I was able to do it. And when I went on the bench, I was multifaceted because I could do the civil cases and the criminal cases. In fact, when I was in the legislature, I was the Republican spokesman on the criminal law committee of the House.
Okay.
And because I dealt with so many.
Yeah, been there, done that, right?
Been down that road.
Oh, very good. Now, you're also at the president of the Kishwaukee YMCA board. I'm a big fan of the YMCA. And why was that important to you to be on that board?
Well, when I was in high school, down there on 3rd Street by what was the DeKalb Theater, it's some beauty school now.
Right.
They started the YMCA. My father was a part of that.
Oh, is that where that was? Yeah.
And Ross Young was there. We'd go down after high school, and Lee and Drugs was up on the corner where the house is now. We'd go in there and get a Green River or something, and then we'd go down and we could play pool. And as I said, I worked at what was the A&P, which is Verandas now. So I got a little break, and I could grab a little something to eat, and then I'd go to work.
Okay.
Ross Young ran it when the Roberts family donated the land out on Bethany Road, and I got involved and helped fundraise and went on that. And my wife has since been on the board of directors there. So we're big supporters of the YMCA. We think they're a vital part of the community.
So what did the original Y, what did that consist of? Was there a gym or was there
Oh, no, it was really just, it might have been a tavern at one time, but upstairs you could read, there were things, and downstairs there were two tables. One was billiards and one was pool.
Okay. That's great.
And then there'd be a dance or two. There was a jukebox, but sometimes on Friday nights they'd have a dance.
Okay, very cool. Now, also, you're a member of we're former president of the Kishwaukee Sunrise Rotary, and I got my lovely bride, a member of the. What's it been like doing that kind of work and the great work that you guys do?
I think Rotary and Rotary International is one of the greatest organizations, volunteer organizations in this country and the world. I mean, we worked to stamp out polio in the world.
Help me redefine that, Judge, because my understanding was there's one tiny part in the world they don't allow you in there, so you haven't eradicated polio 100%.
Yeah, there is in some of the mountains of Afghanistan and places like that, I guess. We haven't. Bill Gates gave Rotary International $100 million
Wow.
into the foundation to eradicate polio, but we had to match it.
Is that
So
right?
Rotary had to match it. So every year we do an auction in our club, and I'm the auctioneer. And you come in, you bring something, and then I sell you something somebody else bought for a price that's probably 3 times what it's worth. Then you write a check for polio.
That's great.
So
That's bad. And then, of course,
my father-in-law had polio.
is that right?
Yeah.
And then the work you've done with getting fresh water to people. It's such a, we take it so much for granted here in America. And the places you guys have gone and gotten fresh water to people, what a rewarding thing that must be.
Rotary just does amazing things, and you have to belong to it really probably and understand what it does in the world. It's an international organization, and Rotary clubs everywhere. If you travel, in any spot, go and you can go to any Rotary meeting. And
Yeah, my wife was a big stickler. She had a track record. She had not missed a meeting in many, many years. And she didn't realize that you go to other places and you go to Rotary meetings, other Rotary meetings, right?
I was at the Judicial College in Reno, Nevada for 3 weeks once, and 3 or 4 of us figured out we were Rotarians, and you couldn't miss a meeting for 3 weeks. And we ducked out the door, and somebody had a car. We drove down to one of the hotels in downtown Reno, and we go in and we pay our thing. We walk in, and there's the dean of the Judicial College looking at us. He said, "Well, I know you're Rotarians." That's okay.
That's great. And I came across this when I was doing some research here. A former resident writes about anti-slavery movement in DeKalb, and this was Nancy Beasley. And I guess Nancy worked for you a while. She did a book called The Underground Railroad in DeKalb County. Tell us about working with Nancy. What was that like?
Nancy was the secretary at our church.
She brings a smile to your face. That's good.
Well, she does. She's a great lady. I could understand her qualities, but the pastor looked at me and said, "John, if you hire her away, you'll be excommunicated from the church." Well, then he left, and I said, "It's fair game." He said, "It's fair game." She came to work for me as a secretary. Her husband was George Beasley, who became my best friend. Unfortunately, he's passed away. Nancy was just an absolute resource to me as a lawyer and secretary, but she also became my legislative assistant after I went in the legislature. And she solved all kinds of people's problems of every nature. And she maintained my legislative office here in DeKalb and did a great job. And we share some time in the winter together, my wife and I, and she.
In Wisconsin now, right?
She's in Wisconsin, but we share time in Florida.
We had Jeff Kiker here not too long ago, and he mentioned George Beasley and what an influence George was on him and how much he helped him in his career.
Yes, and George did that for people. George was a wonderful person. And you could go somewhere with George, and he didn't want anybody to be hungry. And he just was a great person. But he also, I tell the story, he ran where Jeff Kiker is now. He ran that office. And I'd be on the bench, and maybe it'd be a bad day, in some way. And I'd get in the car, and I'd drive over to George, and I'd go up to his office. And we all liked the Peanuts cartoons, back in those days. And Lucy would be the doctor who's in it, was a nickel. And I talked to him for about 10 minutes, and I take a nickel and put it down. It's the doctor you've been paid, and I really felt a lot better.
I love that. When I first moved to town, I learned about the Ben Gordon Center and how Ben Gordon, there's a Ben Gordon hardware store. That's where it started. People used to go right to see
Ben Gordon, yeah.
Right, have a cup of coffee with him and talk about problems and maybe put that nickel down.
His brother Max was always there. You need 2 screws and like 3 cents.
That's great. And then also want to mention, the awards you've won, and I know you've won many, and I know you're a very humble man, but the Bob, I don't want to say the name wrong, the Bob Gigley Award for service to Northern Illinois University,
Bob Geiger Award.
That must have meant a lot to you.
I see Brad Hoy, who's now the city clerk, is getting that. Yeah, that was given to me after I left the legislature, and I'm very proud of it. I have it in my home office. Yeah.
And you got the Northern Illinois University Foundation bestowed the Humanitarian Award for service to higher education. And what are your thoughts about, we talk about trade schools and things, Judge. Does everybody have to go to college? Do you think, should kids go the trade school route and get right to work? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know. I think everybody has to follow their own ambitions and what they like to do. We certainly need trade people, and it's my nephew's a plumber, owns a plumbing company, and does a great job. And
I have an uncle's a plumber. Never been looking for work.
And you just you need a plumber, and you want to pick up the phone. You want to know that the person knows what they're doing and comes and does it. And the same with the electrician. The same with almost everything. So we need everybody, and it's important.
Very good. Now, you recently were a tribute to heroes, the Troop 33. We had Cliff Golden in here. And Cliff, what an amazing man, and was talking about this ceremony. And what was it like to get that tribute?
Well, that was very nice of him, especially when you've been retired as long as I have, and somebody.
Well, your body of work, Judge, reflects back. So, there's a lot to look back on. And let's talk about your lovely wife. Now, I printed this out, but I don't know how old it says Cheryl and John Countryman celebrated their 58th anniversary.
Yes.
Am I close?
Yes. You're right on target.
All right, very good. So tell us about meeting Cheryl. What did you meet Cheryl? And how'd you pop the question? My wife has a jewelry store. I always ask people how they got married. Was it a good story, Judge, or you just...
Well, we dated in high school, and my wife is younger than I am, so she stayed in high school, and she was a cheerleader, and I went to college and was working, so we were busy doing other things, but we just stuck together, and we were always going to get married, and we did.
And how'd you pop the question?
I think I was just in the car one night, said we're going to get married, and I said yes.
You old romantic, you. And then I also found this, too, and again, I'm not sure what year this was, but John and Cheryl Countryman tell us that their granddaughter, Emma, her family and friends will take part in the Ron Santa Walk for the cure of juvenile diabetes. Emma has suffered from type 1 diabetes since she was the age of 4. Now, she was at 13 when this was written. Tell us about that. You had Team Emma, and what was that like?
We did that for many years, and we were really worried when Emma got type 1 diabetes. In fact, I did a recall to the bench in Kane County with the condition that I could go in the middle of the afternoon and pick up Emma because I knew how to handle her diabetes, and she was just a little girl, and take her home, and then I'd come back to the courthouse. And of course,
well, that must have been life-changing for you to do that.
It was.
Because she's so helpless, right?
But they used to laugh at me. I was the only judge with a child seat in the back of my parking lot. But Emma has done great, and Emma is a senior at the University of Michigan. She went to London last semester. She controls her diabetes entirely on her own now, and she's did an internship in New York City all summer, and she's back in Ann Arbor.
And what does she want to do?
Well, she's got an offer from the firm she interns with, so she's going to go back to New York City, and a little scary for Grandma and Grandpa.
I know, gosh. God bless her, though, but she's ready to go, huh?
Well, I tell you, there's nobody harder working than Emma. I have 9 other grandkids, and they're all great. They're absolutely great.
Well, the acorns don't fall far from the tree. I know that. So, again, we were just so honored that you would take time to do this today, Judge. And we got to give you last word here. Is there something you want to say? I know a lot of folks in DeKalb County know and respect you, and I know you've talked on the court. But what do you want to say to the folks of DeKalb County that are listening?
Well, I think this is a great place to live. As I walked into the library where we are today, and was a part of that when they expanded the library, but it's quite a facility. I think we've just got great things going. DeKalb, I think, is turning itself around with industry.
We have 123 housing starts after having none for 10 years.
So. It's just, I think we're really starting to move. the university enrollment's down from everything I understand and what I read in the Tribune on Sunday, but hopefully that'll turn around, and I think this is a great community, a great place to live. A little cold in the winter, but it's a great place to be. And I always tell everybody when I'm in another state that I live next to a cornfield, and I do.
And proudly, I tell you, well, we are proud and honored to have you here. And again, I know I speak for the community when I thank you for all you've done, all the service you've done through the years, Judge. So thank you so much, and thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And that's podcast number 26, TD Ryan Unleashed. TD Ryan Unleashed is brought to you by Scott Zyman, your State Farm insurance agent. Scott can help you save money bundling your home and auto insurance. Call 815-748-3101 or stop by at 2587 Sycamore Road, Suite D in DeKalb. Like a good neighbor, Scott Zyman and State Farm are there. Pizza Villa, pizza, pasta, sandwiches, and more at 824 West Lincoln Highway in DeKalb. For delivery or pickup, call 815-758-8116 or go to pizzavilla.com. My Insurance Guys in Sycamore, family owned, local, reliable. My Insurance Guys cover Medicare to auto and everything in between. Call us in Sycamore at 815-899-0950. My Insurance Guy, business, auto, home, life, and health at myinsuranceguy.com. And Eldercare Services of DeKalb County, safe, secure, and supported, helping you stay at home where you want to be. Call 815-758-6550 or stop in at 1701 East Lincoln Highway in DeKalb or on the web at ecsdekalb.org.